Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his Liberal Party has won a second term, despite his party not winning a single seat in the western provinces of Saskatchewan and Alberta, which apparently are the only two provinces where people have the internet. In an upcoming book about her friendship with Jackie Kennedy Onassis, musician Carly Simon revealed that JFK was with his mistress the night that Jackie gave birth to their child. And they say Donald Trump isn't presidential.
Oh my.
This Friday, thousands of witches will simultaneously conduct a binding spell on President Trump. Considering the way that he eats, do you really think he needs a spell to get him all bound up? Mitt Romney. It's a poop joke. I'm glad that Chelsea liked that. Mitt Romney has admitted that he has a fake Twitter account that he would use to criticize President Trump under the pseudonym Pierre Delecto. Pierre Delecto is now polling higher than any of the Democratic candidates for president. Speaking of which, the New York Times is reporting that Democrats are nervous at the ability of their current field of candidates to beat President Trump in 2020, asking, is there anyone else? You know, all you have to do is turn off the lights in the bathroom, stare in the mirror, and say Hillary Clinton. Oh, fuck. I like this joke, too. I'm just going to pretend. Oh, yeah. The New York Times is reporting that Democrats are nervous at the ability of their current field of candidates to beat President Trump in 2020. Asking, is there anyone else? You know, all you have to do is turn off the lights in the bathroom, stare in the mirror, and say Hillary Clinton 20 times, and she will appear. And finally, President Trump defended Tulsi Gabbard against Hillary Clinton's claims that she is a Russian agent, pointing out that he has never seen her at any of the Russian asset meetings. The Trump Report starts now.
I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Yes, welcome to the Trump Report. Except no substitutes. Except no imitations. The one, the only, the Trump Report. I'm Christian Bladt, joined as always by Chelsea Galicia.
Hello there. I gotta say about these jokes, either they're legit getting funnier or I'm lightening up. One of the two is happening.
They're definitely not getting funnier, so you must be lightening up.
All right.
They're probably much worse. I also don't know how to read anymore. And look, back down on the end of the desk, the one, the only, Scott Moore. It's not the end of the show, but I always want people to know S-Man80.
That's
you know,
right.
That's how we know you out there on the internet. A lot to talk about. A lot of interesting things. This is the Trump Report. We talk about American politics, but I do want to start on Canada just really quickly. Are either of you surprised that the photos of blackface didn't derail Justin Trudeau's attempt at a re-election? And secondary question. Would you have been more surprised if this was before the age of Donald Trump and the grab them by the pussy videotape? I'll ask you first, Scott.
Well, I also say it's past Ralph Northam in Virginia and
Sure,
in
that's
Alabama.
true. Those are more relevant, but also higher office. So.
Right, but I don't know. I think it obviously didn't help him. I think I'm more surprised just on the dynamics that he won, because I thought there was going to be more of a chance that he was going to lose just in general because of what's already been going on there, and he was involved, not him directly, but his office and government was involved in another scandal already there. And I thought just from the years of already having liberal policies that might be swinging the other direction. So I was more surprised on that. I think, like you said, nowadays that people are overlooking things, right or wrong, that have happened in someone's past. And yes, I think it has made a bigger difference with Donald Trump, but I think Barack Obama's endorsement actually, generally presidents stay out of Canadian politics, but I think because he's still very beloved up there, that it might have been just enough to push Trudeau over the finish line there, because his party didn't win a majority.
Right, they don't have a majority.
So I think that in itself, because President Obama still has like an 81% approval rating with Canadians, so he's very popular there.
Can he be Prime Minister of Canada, by the way? 81%, that's pretty great.
So I think, a lot of people did take that endorsement, and some of the people that might have been on the fence, like a lot of the Never Trumpers here in 2016, they're like, oh, we don't really want to vote for him, but we can't vote for Hillary. Maybe some of those people were brought back over the other side because of the strong endorsement from Obama. But I do think there's a big difference from Donald Trump and the level of things that people can get away with now, rightfully or wrongfully. There was a lower bar.
I think what makes a big difference is your response when you get caught for doing something like that.
True.
And hopefully his reaction, his mea culpa, his, sorry, struck people as authentic, sincere, and a mistake that he acknowledged and wishes to move forward from. Whereas the reaction that I've seen from some people who found to have engaged in that behavior here were kind of like, it's no big deal or whatever, you're just trying to smear me. Oh, this is a witch hunt type language.
Yeah.
There's not much taking responsibility. And so hopefully taking responsibility for past mistakes counts for something, and maybe it did here.
That's true too. Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that being able to admit mistakes and apologize and pass on. I mean, it's not a story that we usually talk about here, but look at the difference in the sentencing of Felicity Huffman and Lori Loughlin for essentially doing the same thing. And the judge is very excited to, I don't know, put Lori Loughlin away for 2 months instead of 2 weeks. But still, it's the same idea. It's like you got to at least act like you did something wrong, even if you don't believe it. You have to pretend.
Or actually believe it. Do you think Justin Trudeau's?
Oh no, I'm talking about that other case.
Got it.
I think that he's like, oh yeah, that was stupid. But more than anything, he's like, oh, I wish that those photos hadn't been published in a yearbook.
Of course, yes.
but I do think he's just like, yeah, obviously it's a
and he was running for re-election, so people have already seen him.
Yeah.
In the first term and seen what he has done and everything, so that makes a big difference. And it was not comparing to Ralph Northam, but Northam doesn't have to run again for re-election either because of the way Virginia governor is structured. So for him, it's easy to stay in too because it can't really get out. So I think when people are voting for Trudeau, they already know what he's done in his first term. Different than if he was just running for the first time, it might have made I think a bigger difference. And I don't think a lot of people really liked Andrew Scheer hugely in general, anyways.
Right.
So I think that didn't help Scheer either. Maybe if he was a different candidate, might have been able to push him over the finish line too.
Not really the same topic, but President Trump has characterized the impeachment probe against him as a lynching. And I wanted to go to somebody surprising who didn't know I was going to go to him on this. Ryan in the booth.
How we doing?
I know that you're on the panel for the Watchmen After Show.
That's right.
Which is on HBO. It's based on the award-winning Alan Moore graphic novel. It's essentially, yes, a comic book, but it's relevant because there's a sequence at the beginning of that show that is set during the race riots of where is that? It's Tulsa.
Tulsa,
in like
Oklahoma.
1921, and it's something that apparently is 100% accurate, not based in fiction like the rest of the show, and something that I think most of us didn't know about. And, that story was trending a lot for me yesterday, just on my feed and everywhere, is that, by the way, this thing in Watchmen, just so you know that this really happened. And then there's also a lot of other instances of, there are a few points that are pointed out, during Reconstruction, just similar things that happen in places like Louisiana. So when you hear President Trump characterize what's going on to him as a lynching, what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts is he doesn't know what lynching means.
I think that's fairly accurate, yeah.
I think, what was so crazy, by the way, thank you for tuning in. I saw you in the live chat for the Watchmen After Show.
All-star panel.
All-star panel. What was just talking about this Watchmen, bringing up lynching for a second, what was so fascinating about that scene was it was depicting a horrific event that happened in, 1921, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and even at the end of the episode, not getting too far into details, but there is a form of a lynching that occurs to a character.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, it's horrible. It's one of the worst things you could possibly do to a person. It's physical harm, abuse. It's berating and demeaning. It's all of the above. It's one of the worst things you could possibly do. It has nothing to do with a government process to just get out of an office. There's no physical
and by the way,
harm
this
done.
is an investigation. This
It's
isn't
an investigation.
This isn't a vote. They're just looking into some things, and I think comparing it to something that what it triggered in my mind because I had seen the show is. Oh, so literally hundreds of people being dragged out of their homes and murdered so that they didn't vote. They didn't want, in that case in Tulsa, but also in some other states around this, I guess a few decades earlier, was just like, oh, too many black people were voting, so we're going to kill them so that they can't vote.
We're going to drop a bomb.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
There's a bomb.
Yeah. So that compared to it, and I think it's important to, look, you can say that like, oh, he shouldn't use the word lynching, but I think it's important to put it into at least some context. Now, I know on this show we usually this, of course, was a statement he made on Twitter because that's where all of President Trump's comments come from. That pretty much everything that he says. So we're always very quick to dismiss these things. Do you find any surprise in him saying it? Because I don't. I'm more surprised that I thought that Lindsey Graham had kind of gotten away from him, that he had gotten like out from under the thumb of Donald Trump.
No.
And then he like doubled down on it.
He was like a lynching in every sense of the word.
Yeah, like every sense of the word.
And the
like,
one
really?
and he's from South Carolina. It's like, what are you doing?
So yeah, definitely not surprised that Trump would say it because he can only be the hero of the heroes or the victims of the victims.
Right.
There's nothing.
And somehow he's both at the same time, at least in his mind.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
And that's the ego, hero or victim. And he knows that using that language would rile people up and get people obsessed and get the rage machine going and rile up his base. So this plays like right into sort of where he wants us, which for me, I have been at a struggle, and I'm legit asking for advice here. I think I know what Scott would say. But, on the one hand, you kind of want to ignore him because the ego loves the criticism and the clash. And so if you don't give it to him, the ego just doesn't have anything to feed on. So you just want to ignore it and not address it. And then the other side is if you don't say anything, it sparks that Martin Luther King quote that said, sort of like at the end of the day, it's not the words of the enemies that you remember, but the silence of your friends.
Yeah.
So you don't want to say nothing and seem like it's normalized
exactly.
okay.
You don't want to normalize something. And I mean, it's the same idea of, well, do you do an impeachment hearing if you are certain that the Senate won't remove him from office? It's like, well, we don't expect maybe that, but it's like, well, we feel like we should do something. And I guess that's the same sort of thing.
It's this balance, say nothing to ignore, but you say nothing and that's not cool either.
Yeah, it's like condoning it and allowing, this is acceptable.
Exactly.
This is completely fine to do.
So I, personally find myself literally between a rock and a hard space. Like, yes, I want to say something. I guess maybe the answer is to say something from a calm place, to say, no, you're wrong. And the only time that the word lynching should come out of a president's mouth is to say we apologize for it as a nation. But then don't give in to the emotional reaction that comes from reading that.
Which is like
statement.
me to just basically say, go to hell, you human garbage.
Right. So I expected, Scott's going to recommend trolling.
But by the way, that's at Real Donald Trump. Go to hell, you
human garbage.
And you might as well tag him a second time because then I think it'll show up as 2 alerts.
At
Yes.
POTUS.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right.
true.
That's true. He does have the at POTUS. I forgot. He doesn't really use that one because he has so many less followers.
So see what I'm concerned about. So that totally,
Right. It was
resonates with me.
But it was the fury at the moment, and I do agree with you. I knew he was doing this exactly because he knew he was going to get a reaction, and that he was going to get his base all frothed up, and his base, let's be honest, some of them are racist, and he's like, great, I got to keep them in the corner. I've lost most other minorities. I've lost Democrats. I've lost, moderate Republicans. I've lost independents. So he's got to keep going through this base. But the other thing that concerned me too, which we haven't talked about, is the fact that he brought up, when Republicans have the House again, they're just going to impeach Democrat president now. And, that's a thing that's going to be put out there now. And it is true. Now Republicans are going to go out whenever a Democrat, no matter what, and they're going to try to impeach. And it's just going to go back and forth now because we've now set the bar so low.
Look, when that Democratic president lies under oath, I'm not thinking of any particular, maybe you should, but yeah, I know what you're saying.
But
it's sort of like
he put that out there too, is like he threw this bomb, but he put this whole other thing out there too that now no one's really talking about. And of course, I'm also all the time, because I'm so jaded, like, what is he distracting us from right now? Is it the testimony that was happening today? What's the other thing he's doing by throwing this bomb out there with the horrible historical implications of this to get people riled up? What is he distracting here from what's really happening in the real world?
And that's October 22nd. We'll remember months later when some whistleblower says something was happening. October 22nd. We'll remember this.
There's something came across his desk in the morning.
I think there's something that he wants to distract us from too, which I hate thinking about because it makes him think that he's really thinking this through. But I do also think that he knew exactly what he was doing, getting people riled up, getting the distraction, getting the media to go against him, and getting his base to be all frothed up to defend him, kind of thing.
And I don't want to move on too quickly. We'll talk about other things, but these are stats that I saw in a CBS News article. So the NAACP estimates that at least 3,446 Black Americans were killed in lynchings between 1882 and 1968, as were about 1,297 whites, often for supporting anti-lynching or civil rights efforts. And finally, Congressman Jim Clyburn, the House Majority Whip, said, I think that what we see here once again is this president attempting to change the narrative using what I consider to be real caustic terms in order to change the conversation. To compare the constitutional process to something like lynching is far beneath the office of the President of the United States. There are a number of people who have spoken out, other elected officials, but there are plenty that just didn't say anything. It's obviously much worse to be Lindsey Graham and support it.
Wow.
But then there's others who's like,
I mean, he full on went into the explanation that what's going on right now is just an angry mob going in and attacking him and taking him down, which is not the same thing as elected officials going through a constitutional process to remove somebody from office, not to literally end his life.
And there's not much to it, but we're always so hard on him. I need to point out, Mitch McConnell, he did call the president's choice of words unfortunate and saying, quote, wait, he said, but see, I was going to leave it at that, but he actually said a little bit more. Given the history in our country, I would not compare this to a lynching. And look, that's like saying 1,000 words.
Generous.
For him, it's like, oh, yeah, he's just like, because unfortunate is like, is it unfortunate because it wasn't strong enough? It could be taken a lot of ways. So in any case, and even Senator Tim Scott, the only Black Republican in the Senate, he also said...
who's Lindsey's counterpart.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
From South Carolina.
Anyway, so I wanted to spend a little bit more time than we usually do on, Trump's misspeaking or misappropriating terminology that he probably doesn't understand. But I do want to move on to something much lighter to me, and that is the fact that apparently there is a Russian asset amongst us. And it's Tamra, and that's why she's not here. No, Tulsi Gabbard, apparently a Russian asset, and it's easy to make fun of. When that came up at the debate, I'm like, what the hell is she talking about? I was just like, that was the first I'd heard of it. And then really like over the weekend, there was so much talk about it. And I know everybody on the show likes to make me laugh, likes to make fun of me. You all like to laugh at me and make fun of me. But, Hillary really going all in on this. There's that New York Times article I mentioned at the top of the show where she's, people who know are like, well, if she knew she'd win, we feel like she would run. Still not too late for Hillary to get in. She's, it's never too late for her to get in. So what are your thoughts, Chelsea, on this allegation? And look, I'm quick to dismiss it because it sounds so crazy. Do you think it's possible that Tulsi Gabbard is a Russian asset?
What the F is Hillary Clinton saying?
I don't know.
if you're going to say something like that, you need to explain it more. Like, to just say, Russian asset and then end it there, rather than saying, Tulsi may not even realize that she would be targeted by the Russians for support because she has maybe similar values or policy goals that they do. Okay, that would explain it. But
she served in the military, and I assume a lot of Russians serve in the military. I'm just guessing, right there.
But to just say, she's a Russian asset makes it sound like Tulsi Gabbard is knowingly cooperating with the Russians to try and, infiltrate and betray the United States. It just sounds moronic. And then to put the same thing on Jill Stein, and then because when she said it about Trump, I was like, hey, could be.
Well,
but then when it's
from a Democratic standpoint, you could understand, look, we feel like there was tampering in the 2016 election, and we feel like they wanted Trump and not me, as in Hillary. You could follow at least okay, maybe there's not evidence to support that, but you can understand it as a theory. When it comes to this, and yes, I know, just sort of like the rib kick at Jill Stein, where she's like, wait, what did I do?
Well, she did cost the election to Hillary. But,
well, in a few places that she could have campaigned a little. little harder.
Right.
Or I don't know. Maybe
At all.
maybe been a different candidate. Maybe that would have helped. But Scott, what do you think? Where do you think this comes from? Like, why do you think that right now this is so important for her to do?
Need for attention?
Well, yeah, I did think it was odd.
That's
because,
why I say she's going to run for president, just for the attention.
Well, and that's sort of what Tulsi said in Twitter too. She was basically like, "Oh, well, if you're going to attack me, then why don't you run?"
Tulsi said more than that.
Well, no, I know. I went
She
through
wants
the
to
whole,
meet with her too.
Yeah.
And,
Oh wait, I was talking about the queen of warmongers.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
maybe
I was going
not
to say, how do you feel about that statement?
I
Maybe
I
not
mean,
queen, but is
but-
she in the Hall of Fame, the warmongering Hall of Fame?
Princess? Maybe? I don't know. It's hard.
Sure.
That's hard. Embodiment of corruption?
Harsh, but
But that Hillary personifies corruption when we have
Right.
Trump and his swamp
his
buddies
cronies,
there.
yep.
Like, it makes it a little bit too
right.
extreme.
But I'm sorry, Scott. What were you going to say?
One, I mean, she didn't actually directly say it was her. So that's the thing too that I thought. No, but she didn't actually say it was her. She didn't go out and say it was Tulsi. She
It's
just said
Beto.
it. She
That
just
makes more
mentioned.
sense. He wants to come and take everybody's guns, so he's a Russian
But we're all
asset.
kind of made that assumption. Clearly, yes.
if it wasn't, I think Hillary would have clarified by
right.
now.
It is her. But it was interesting. She didn't say her directly. And secondly, her thought process was, and in some of the articles I read too, is also that Tulsi may not even be aware that she's the asset, that they're trying to find people that they're going to fund and hopefully use that person as a tool to take down other
Yes, that
competitors, and that she
explanation
may
would have been
not
good.
directly, Tulsi herself may not even directly realize that she's actually an asset, which is part of the things they've said about Donald Trump too, is that he's too stupid to collude and that he actually didn't know that he was, an asset to Russia to win, and they were funneling money and dark money and things like that. But beyond that, I don't know why she felt that this was the time to do it, especially when Tulsi, what is she, like
Polling at
1-2%?
yeah.
Like, she's probably not going to be in the next debate. I'm
you're-
still confused as to how she was in the
Well,
most
that's
recent
what we
debate.
talked about because of the way it worked. They were still taking the numbers from earlier in
Oh, okay,
August,
that
and
actually
so
makes sense.
September. So you had September as well. So that's why some people didn't make it September, but they made it in October. But now they're not.
But
going
I
to
could see
November.
her. I could see her poll numbers being much
Well, that's
higher.
what I'm saying. You're actually helping her get attention now,
especially in Stalingrad. I think she's polling very highly there.
but you're actually giving her attention, which could actually help bring her numbers up, especially again for maybe moderates and moderate Republicans that are going to give her a second look and be like, oh, well, she's not like the liberal Democrat in this race, and we might be able to vote for her over some of the more liberal, progressive, or left-leaning Democrats, and so she's actually in a weird way giving her more attention. So I don't know what her thought process why now was the time she felt
terrible
she
move.
wanted to do that. I don't quite understand
Sit
it either.
this one out.
Yeah.
Well,
do this.
I mean, people want Hillary to. I almost called her Chelsea. No, because of her daughter, not you. Calm down. No, I think people want Hillary to sit a lot of them out. The next 13 months. In the chat, Lady Goth points out that she's currently on the Foreign Affairs Committee working against terrorism, and Hillary basically accused the sitting congressman of treason, which is punishable by death, by the way.
Very true.
Yes.
So it's worth pointing out the severity of what she's saying. Beyond the craziness of it, look, if Rudy Giuliani had said it, we'd be like, well, of course he'd say that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Donald Trump can say that and say Adam Schiff has done treason and same kind of thing. But yeah, it's there are two sides of that because the Republicans throw that out all the time with Adam Schiff and other people that they're all treasonous, and again, punishment is death, and then that just seems to be no big deal.
And Bernie Sanders defended Tulsi, not missing a moment to take a shot at Hillary. Deservedly so, by the way. I'm not saying that she didn't deserve it. And
not
Mayor
just that,
Pete.
but-
So I'm assuming. I actually don't know if, as the afternoon went on, if we heard from more of the candidates.
Andrew Yang, I think, defended
Yes,
her.
he did the other day,
But
yeah.
I mean, let's remember that Tulsi dropped out of what was her position with the DNC so that she could support
Right.
and endorse Bernie Sanders.
So there you go.
So he should,
So then I
he
want-
would defend her.
Yeah, I mean, is Hillary trying to hurt Bernie by the Tulsi Association? I don't know, but please, I don't know whether to advise her to, not like she's going to listen to me, Hillary, but either zip it or explain what you meant by an asset, and hopefully...
She just left it out there, and it's like, well, why are you saying
Well,
that?
she left it out there and hanging out there, again, without
No
directly
evidence.
saying her name, and then keeping it very vague. So I'm like, what is the motive behind it? at this point, especially with someone who's only polling 1% to 2%. Why? What is that? What purpose does that serve? Unless there's some kind of game going on here where you think you can take out certain candidates, like you're saying. Maybe there's something I don't know, and then she can swoop in and be the savior and run
I
again.
know. Is this speaking to your you mentioned in the joke that the establishment, or I saw in the
Well, that's a New York
articles,
Times. That's actually a New York Times
that
article.
the establishment is wondering who else because their only choices are Joe Biden.
Well, no, because that they specifically don't feel strongly about Joe Biden, but they're not convinced. They're not convinced on a national level that Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, and they didn't even go through. They just there were some, I guess, big money donors just sort of quietly saying, "Are you sure there isn't anybody else?" And you hear, obviously, Hillary's name always comes up. Michelle Obama, who has given every indication that she's, like 8 years was too many in the White House. She certainly doesn't want more. But then, you hear about like Eric Holder, and you're like, Eric Holder? Who's voting for Eric Holder? And I can't even remember who else, who that they've checked in on.
Bloomberg.
Yeah, and then I'm just like, okay, I guess, but don't you think he would have he would have run for president if he thought he had any kind of a chance? But as here we are. Let's see, it's probably about 54, 55 weeks out from the election, which sounds long, but before we know it, it'll be all over.
Yeah, a little over a year.
Scott will be coloring in the map. Hopefully from Scott's point of view, hopefully the blue marker is the one that runs out this time, not the red. But what do you legitimately think about just these candidates? Is there somebody that I really wish, and it can even be Michelle Obama, or I know we've talked a lot about Oprah, but do you feel like maybe these aren't the best candidates, but they still have a decent shot, or is there somebody that's like, this is who should really be running?
No, I think Elizabeth Warren would be a great pick, but if she has so many plans for everything, and that is great. I love that. But I think what is, even to me, is it's like, okay, clearly one person cannot do all of these. And I want to hear her focus on what is her one crucial piece of legislation. I hope that it would be the anti-corruption plan that she has put forth, because none of the other ones could be possible none of her other plans could be possible without it. But I need her to stick to one, because when she's talking about all of her plans have a price tag, and it just gets overwhelming to people. And when you think already the government is not that great, by not that great, pretty terrible, not efficient, doesn't have handling money down very well, to think about new, more expensive programs, even if this wealth tax works, it's just a lot for the government to take on when it it's not in good shape right now as it is. Let's before we try and bulk up, can we what? My fiance's going to kill me for not knowing. You have to kind of slim down, trim down, and get fit first, get lean before you start building. And so my concern is that she wants to build on a really rocky foundation. Don't try and build. Say we got to clean stuff up first, then we can talk about growth after that.
Scott, same question. As you assess the field, what do you think of these candidates, and is there somebody that, I really wish it was so-and-so?
And Oprah for press secretary.
Yeah. For press secretary.
Oh my gosh, that'd be amazing. And someone that actually could do their job. Look, I do have the normal fear of just being okay, I'm not this current crop of candidates. I'm I'm not feeling the passion I did with Barack Obama. And so that always makes me a little nervous, because you do have to have the passion involved. And it's not just me. I'm speaking for the people that are going to go out and vote and go out in the snow and, bad weather, and they're working 2 jobs and have kids and they're barely making ends meet, and they have to have that feeling to go out of their way to go vote. Shouldn't be that way, but it's true. When you have a lot of stuff going on, you want to feel passion, you want to feel like that person's taking you with you. And I do think Elizabeth Warren has some great plans, but like you say, Chelsea, she's got to simplify it. That's why Trump did so well, because he simplified everything. He had these stupid little
dumb it down,
and then we don't have to go quite that dumb.
Hopefully.
But you do want to make sure that it's simply put.
Right.
It's look, this is what I'm going to do. Here's a short explanation. Instead of just saying you just go to my website. No, give a little bit, and then be if you really want to know, then you can do the homework and find out. But here's the answer to your question. And that was what they were hammering Elizabeth Warren at in the last two debates. And it seems like she's like, well, I guess I should let everybody know how I'm going to pay for this Medicare for all.
Well, I'm sure that's coming out soon. But even still, I know it's going to be some form of wealth tax. Yeah, wealthy people are a little freaking out. But then there's like uncertainty about whether it would even work and whether we should even take that on right now when we should just be doing a better job of managing what we have so far. Clean up wasteful military spending. That's where I would begin personally. But and then we can start to grow.
Right. And but that said, I think that any one of these candidates is highly well better than Donald Trump.
I saw
even Marianne Williamson.
Even Marianne, yes.
I know. I just wanted you to say it on record. I knew what your answer was going to be. I just wanted to pose it.
But the thing is, yes, and I think we have a very good opportunity for Democrats to win and win by a decent number. And if they don't win the presidency, then they really are terrible at the game here.
And I have lost faith in Americans.
Yes, because of the fact of the corruption going on and everything else, that people are not sick enough with this current president. And it won't take a lot. It only takes a couple states to flip over. And
well, I mean, that's what we saw. Well, I was going to say 4 years ago, but 3 years ago, you saw that it was just these razor thin margins, and really just a few. Pennsylvania was really the biggest one,
right? And so and ones that had been Democratic since the 80s. But then you started seeing how they went in 18, and they all flipped back over to the Democrats. Right. So,
but don't take that for granted.
Don't take it for granted. And also, state is different than federal. But it's just a warning sign to Donald Trump that a normal president at this point, with an economy like this, should be coasting to re-election. And I would say there was no Democrat that could win against a normal Republican with an economy like this. And that would have been the same if there was a Democrat incumbent with the economy like this. But I do think any one of those candidates has a really good shot because it doesn't take much. And so they all have a very good chance of winning and winning pretty handily, and maybe flipping some states too that have been red for a long time, like Arizona. And things like that.
Sorry.
So.
I do want to read some comments from the booth, and then after that, I'm going to go. Sorry, from the chat, but I will go to the booth and get Ryan's opinion. So I will let you weigh in on something in a minute, but let me get to the questions first. So let's see. We have Rajiv Dixon in the chat. Thank you. I've never seen you there before, so thanks for checking out the show.
Welcome.
Was excited about Cory Booker, thinking Elizabeth Warren, leaning towards her. Respects Bernie for what he's been able to accomplish, and thinks that Bernie has put forth a great corruption plan. And Ryan actually asked Rajiv to rank his preferences. So we have 6 of them. So we have Warren, Biden, Bernie, Tulsi, Kamala, then Mayor Pete.
So many questions.
Yeah. So no, but I thought that was great that he actually gave us 6. So I think that's interesting. Now, Ryan in the booth, a young man there. Is this the first presidential election you'll be able to vote in?
No, I voted in the last one.
Okay. And that, how you voted is not relevant. But as you look at 2020, and whether you're open-minded or not, who do you look at as somebody that doesn't follow politics? I mean, he'll give you theories about the new Star Wars trailer, but he doesn't. It's the way that some of us follow politics is the way that he looked at that. But I would say when you look at it and you just see headlines, obviously stuff pops up on Twitter. How do you feel like people in general are reacting to these options for Democrats? Do you feel like, your average, not entirely obsessed over, watching the debates and the town halls and all that?
So not people like us.
Right. So not us. What do you think, a more typical American, obviously, because there's better things to watch on TV than those debates. Trust me.
So what do I think?
Yeah, just what do you think? What is your feeling? And it doesn't even have to be a personal feeling.
Right.
But how do you feel people, whether it's your age or just people you follow on social media, do you feel like they feel that these options for Democratic candidate are lacking?
Well, it's interesting because, I was in college for the 2016 election.
Sure.
And
God,
oh my God, I know. Me too.
I know. Yeah. But what I was saying is basically.
I thought he might not have been old enough to vote, so that should have clued you in, by the way. Go ahead, sorry.
I voted every time I can. But I will say, what I noticed was after that, I think people, especially my age group, were more informed than I've ever seen them informed.
Yay.
I think a lot of people got just informed is a loose term, but I think just into politics, everyone was paying attention a lot more than I'd ever witnessed in the years before that. But in the past year, I feel like it's really gone down. Like everyone's just really lost interest. I don't know if it's a hope
Tired of
thing.
it.
No, I mean,
Just
honestly, I
tired,
would say
overwhelmed.
there's the fatigue because
Yeah.
it's like even whatever your level is. I don't mean you personally.
Yeah.
For people who dislike Trump, like if you have the white hot hatred of 1,000 suns, eventually you wake up in the morning, you're like, you know what, I just can't today. Like, oh, what he said today is so
tiring.
much worse than a
Yeah.
month ago, but I just can't. And I understand people who feel that way. And then you have your more average, the average reaction is, I don't like that guy, but I just don't want to hear about it.
Right.
It's like, it's too much. Some people would like to turn on a cable news channel and hear about something else once in a while. And, I think that there are a lot more middle of the road people who's like, whether they only kind of like him, maybe people who voted for him because they didn't like Hillary. There's a lot of people who just don't want to hear about it. So I can understand that idea of like, being super plugged in and focused, especially anybody who felt like, oh, 2016 kind of happened because we, as in the younger generation, were a little bit asleep at the switch there.
Right. I think. I don't want to speak for my entire generation, but what I will say.
No, you are the voice of a
I am the
generation.
voice of the generation, right?
You have
What-
Star Wars theories. You watch Watchmen. Come on.
Exactly. Yeah. But what I will say is, people my age, like, we're just not interested. I feel like in Joe Biden or anyone
And
who's just
this is
that
a guy from
established.
Delaware, by the way.
I know.
Yeah,
I'm from
right.
Delaware. I've met
Yeah.
Joe Biden a few times. I have pictures with him, but I'm just.
You can bring those in.
I mean, my family was literally friends with his children, and I'm just kind of over it. Like, I think a lot of my age group is just, we're over the establishment pick, like the obvious, there's nothing exciting about that. In 2016, I was very, I think, driven or like engrossed or drawn by Bernie Sanders and people like him. Like, they got me really passionate about politics that year. So it's people that I think, he was a more populist candidate in that, but I think just what was impressive with him was he just had plans. Whether those plans could be executed, I just knew what he was about, and it was just very straightforward. So I that's what I'd say. I think just these establishment picks are not what people my age are necessarily into.
That makes me so happy.
So that's what I'm throwing out
Yeah.
there. But I'm never talking about Joe Biden with anyone. I'm never talking about like Tulsi Gabbard. Like, I'm usually hearing people bring up Elizabeth Warren or Pete Buttigieg or Bernie Sanders, and it used to be Beto, but I feel like a lot of people stopped talking about Beto.
Beto
the
had a
past few
minute.
weeks.
He definitely had a minute, and I think that it's that, I don't know, whatever that was for. I think that the sun has set on Beto mania, which I don't think was actually a thing, but it sounds funny to say. And yeah, I think that's what it comes down to is like, who are you going to be passionate about, a year from now? And the fear is like, well, you look at that field and you're like, no, you can see people getting passionate about some of these people's ideas, but they're probably not the front runners. And yeah, I mean, Joe Biden, the majority of people, if you ask them, it's like, so why do you think right now you would vote for Joe Biden? It's like, oh, because I think he would win. So like why would you vote for Joe Biden in the primary? It would be the question. And the answer would probably be like, well, because I think he's got the best chance to beat Trump. And then it's like, well, what about these other things? Like, nah,
And he's comfortable. It's like, oh, well, he's been around forever. We know him. Like, okay.
Worn in sweatshirt,
Yes,
if you
exactly.
will.
So, but you don't have the passion. And that's what I was saying earlier. We need to feel the passion to actually go out of our way to say, yes, we're voting for this person and not just against Donald Trump. Because, like you said, people already hate Donald Trump that are going to go vote. But who are the people that are kind of on the fence that are like, maybe I'll vote, but you need that passionate person that's going to bring them over and have them go out of their way to vote. So you're voting for that person and not just against Donald Trump. And that's what we need to find.
I think for all the effort that Joe Biden goes to attach himself to Barack Obama, I think that there are people who are like me who see Obama as, yeah, he was good, but it was a disappointment in a lot of ways. And I actually wouldn't want
but the kind
more
of
of that.
the kind of disappointment that if it had somehow been possible that these last 3 years could have been a continuation of that disappointment, I think that's an alternative that you would take to what we have right now.
Yes.
You would rather be disappointed by Barack Obama for a third term, obviously very hypothetical, than this term of the Trump administration.
Yes, but this is where we are, and so we might as well make the most of it. And what Trump has done is brought to light the corruption that, many administrations commit.
Right.
And so this is our opportunity that once the light has been shining on it, we can see it for what it is and clean it up once and for all. So I just wanted to be clear that I'm not just saying Trump is the only one who's been corrupt and that's why we need to fix it. It's been going on for a long, long time.
Generations and throughout administrations.
I mean, it's going on right now.
Yeah.
You know, you have Republicans, Democrats, and independents all very, you know, all with a lot of hands out, you know, and, you know, I think it is an important issue, and I know how important it is to you because we talk about it most weeks. I just wonder if that's the issue that you're going to get people excited about.
People just have to understand how it connects to all the other
Right,
ones.
and so I think you have to build the excitement about these other things and be like, well, you know, all these things, they really fall under the corruption
if you
budget.
watch, I feel like there was one period of time where I watched maybe like 5 documentaries, one about food, one about, you know, cannabis, all sorts of.
They go together.
Okay.
After you watch the cannabis documentary, you're hungry for the food documentary. Yes, obviously.
But when I watch, you know, whatever subject it's on, you can see that the fundamental problem with the industry or that area of life or the world is the money corrupting the hopefully good intentions of people or not so good intentions of people, and that getting a hold on that is the most important thing that we can do to clean up everything that we care about.
Speaking of corruption, I don't want to run out of time. I think it is certainly, this is the great opportunity for This Week in Corruption.
Oh, yes.
Our award-winning, soon to be awarded, segment that Chelsea is very passionate about, and we get to... I think do we have 2 items today?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go with the first one.
So here's one of them. So I am quoting from a ProPublica article that talks about Randy Perkins, a guy that donated $500,000 to a pro-Trump super PAC just after his company had won a federal contract.
Right. That doesn't sound good.
That is like sort of corruption at its core.
That's kind of like ABC definition of corruption,
and I think he came out to say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. That was sent through
I was so
company.
corrupt.
That was supposed to be from my personal money, not from the company."
So what he's saying is, I'm sorry that I left a paper trail that could connect me, because that's what
I'm sorry I got caught.
I'm so sorry I got caught. Yeah.
So
exactly.
Listen, he's not, and I don't even want to harp on this guy because it's not about one person.
No, but it's a perfect example.
Exactly. And so this is the kind of thing that kind of flew under the radar. And now at the top, at the moment, I can't even remember what the other one was about. Do you remember?
Well, you did send it to me.
I know. Now I can't even remember what I sent you.
I mean,
I do remember. The Supreme Court kind of did away with the case about gerrymandering in Michigan.
Right.
Saying that basically what they said in the last gerrymandering case, that the courts are not the place to fix our issues with gerrymandering, which I totally and completely disagree with.
It's the complete opposite.
Because the problem is created by the legislative branch, whether that's on the state level or federal. And then the court's job is to put a check on that, or so is my understanding of when I went to law school. So that the courts would decline to really take this up and see it as their issue to deal with is really, really disappointing. So I guess the only thing that we can do is somehow, and I'm not even sure how you do this, you have to push our legislatures to make it illegal for them to be creating the districts as they want to, which help dilute their opponents' pool of voters. I just don't know how you do that.
Like in California, where you have to get the voters to vote for nonpartisan commissions to divide up districts.
Yeah,
and
so
things
it's
like
a lot
that.
harder.
It is harder, but you're right. I mean, because it was the exact opposite of what they should have been doing.
But this political gerrymandering is another form of corruption. It's very sly, and if you're not paying attention, it's very easy to miss. I didn't know about it.
But they're not even sly about it. They're very blunt in saying they're making these districts to suit their own.
Right.
And you see the way they're drawn out. And some of them are crazy in little strips of like one block of houses that go down and connect down further to other areas. And they readily admit they do it on purpose.
Yeah.
Before we run out of time, I want to get to some comments from last week's show, which was our post-debate special. Zach111, great show. Look forward to it every week. Zach's always in there, so I wanted to give him a shout out.
Hi, Zach.
Jinky switched off when not one of them said Bernie won the night. Sorry, but he didn't. I mean, he didn't have a bad night. It's just that it really wasn't his night.
And if somebody was going to say Bernie had won, it probably would have been me.
It definitely would have been you.
He did well given his circumstances.
Right.
Yeah, it was he just can't come back from a heart attack. So Verity says, quit beating up on Andrew Yang. I don't know who that is. We're talking about Alan Yang or Jimmy Yang. I'm not even sure. You weren't there, Scott, but hilarity
For the record,
ensued.
I like Andrew Yang.
Yeah, sure.
So
we didn't really beat up on him. I just wanted his $1,000. And very important, mansion lover? Really? That's interesting. I would love to have a mansion as well. I can't believe nobody commented on Christian's new look. The suit and beard make you look quite distinguished, Christian. And of course, I've done away with both of those. But I was working on a costume. If you want to check out,
I was going to say because nobody
Marvel
commented.
Movie News. Yeah, exactly. No, I got rid of it because no one commented. Anyway, we are out of time. Thanks to Ryan in the booth for chiming in.
You got it.
And of
the
course,
voice of a generation.
Of course,
Yes.
Scott Moore. Where do people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at sman80. That's SMAN80.
And Chelsea.
Twitter at Chelsea Galicia.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at ChristianDMZ. And as I referenced, you can find me over on the Popcorn Talk Network Thursdays at 1 Pacific for Marvel Movie News. That is all the time we have now, but we will see you next week. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Nuestros fundadores Kevin Undergaro y María Menunos quieren agradecerles por estar aquí en AfterBuzz TV. Recuerden que no solo somos los primeros en serlo.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos. Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.